Welcome to our tutorial about connecting to a database. In this tutorial, we'll use a Microsoft Access database that I previously created. This database has two tables, a hypothetical Team A and a Team B. This database was created in Access 2003, but of course it'll still work with Access 2007. By the way, in order to use Microsoft Access, with Visual Studio 2008, you don't have to have Microsoft Access installed on your computer. That's because Visual Studio has a built-in component which understands the Access file format. Let's go to View from the main menu and activate the Server Explorer. As you see, we currently don't have any established database connections. We can use the Connect to Database button located right here. The Add Connection dialog box opens. If you're opening this window for the first time, click Change and select Microsoft Access Database File. Let's cancel out of this for right now and cancel out again. We're going to establish our database connection in a different way. Select Data from the main menu, Add New Data Source. We are asked to choose a data source type. Database is already pre-selected for us. Let's click Next. Here we're going to create a connection string. A connection string is basically a statement that Visual Studio uses to access information stored in data files. Let's click New Connection. The Add Connection dialog window opens. We just saw this a couple seconds ago. The Change Data Source dialog window opens. It gives us a list of potential data sources. Let's select an Access database file and then click OK. Now let's specify the location of our database. We browse and click Open. We need to provide a username and password if the database uses one. And now we're ready to test our connection. The test connection was successful. Click OK. And OK again. We've successfully created a connection string, which is shown right here. If you don't see it, expand the connection string plus sign. As I mentioned before, the connection string is simply a statement which allows Visual Studio to access information in your database. This string can hold potentially sensitive information such as username and password for your database if you use one, so be cautious of this fact. The connection string also identifies the provider, Microsoft Jet OLEDB 4.0 in our case. OLEDB stands for Object Linking and Embedding Database. This is an underlying database component that understands how to connect and extract data from the Access database. We'll be learning more about OLEDB later in this course. For now, let's go ahead and click Next. The wizard gives us an alert message. The wizard asks us a question. The connection we selected uses a local data file that's not in the current project. Do we want to copy it to our project directory and modify the connection? You may want to click Yes if you plan to distribute your program to an end user. I'm going to click No at this time, though. Next, the wizard wants to know if we want to save the connection string to the application configuration file. We definitely want to do so. The reason for this is that if the location of the database changes, we can edit the connection string in our configuration file. This is a file that's listed in the Solution Explorer. Let's click Next. Now we're going to create a database object which is known as a dataset. Here we can select items we require for our project. For example, the Team A table, or just the name and last name columns from this table. This begs the question, what exactly is a dataset? A dataset is a copy of your database. The dataset file is stored inside your project folder. For example, here we'll only copy the Team A table into our dataset. I'm going to click Finish now, and then we'll discuss this a little bit more. Here is our dataset file. In the Properties window, we see the file path. Once again, our actual database is located on Drive C. It's in the DB folder. My dataset has a different location, obviously. When you modify the data in your dataset, you don't modify the data in the original database until you execute a command that writes the data back to the original data source. Sometimes this concept is called a disconnected data source. The dataset file is essentially an XML file. You can open it up in Notepad. It looks something like this. You see XML in the header right here. In the Server Explorer, under Data Connection, we see our database, MyDB. Here are our tables and columns. If I double-click on my dataset, we only see Team A's data table and the columns that we selected to include in the database. Now, in our case, we selected all the columns. If I double-click on the app.config file, we see the connection string. It's right here. Here is our database. This concludes our tutorial about connecting to a database.